Okay, I think I'm live and visible to you all now. Warm greetings to everybody. Thanks for coming. Feels like it's been a little while since I've had time with you all. So I'll just do a quick sound and visual check as I adjust my screen and make sure everyone is seeing and hearing me okay. Great, thank you. Just trying to make my screen a little bigger. I always forget how to do it. There it is. That's better. Now I can see the chat. So just spend a couple of minutes waiting for people to check in. Nice to see some familiar names there. Yes, it is a beautiful morning here on the east coast of Australia, just after sunrise. A few people tuning in from different parts of the world. We've got Scotland, the US. Astrid, hey. Old friend from the UK. Wonderful. And some locals. That's great. France, US, Ireland. It's really lovely just to connect with everyone in this space and time. So we have the opportunity again today to do a guided meditation and open up for some questions and discussion on Dharma. So as usual, we'll, as we have been doing anyway, we'll close the chat box for the guided meditation just to help people focus. And then we'll open it up to take some questions in for about 10 minutes. And then we'll close it again. And then I can take the time just to respond to all those questions. If I get through them pretty quickly, we'll keep doing that, opening up the chat box for more. This seems to have been working quite well in the last 6 months or so. So let's get ready for the meditation. I'll just reflect a little bit around the Dharma and then guide us into this meditation. And if you're just coming, if you're just coming for the first time, or if you're new to meditation, I just want to say that the way we approach meditation is very, very natural. It's not as if we're going to try to force something to happen, or that we hope something's going to be dramatically different as soon as we start the meditation, or even by the end of the meditation. You know, there's a lot of different ideas of what meditation is. And I've been practicing Buddhism myself for several decades, Buddhist meditation. And through that time, I've also grown through a curve of refinement, I guess, in regards to this practice of meditation. And what I mean by refinement, I don't mean about the states, the mind states that one may encounter or experience. More a refinement of the approach or the view of, you could say what meditation is, but even what the path is or what awakening is. And as we approach meditation, it's really just about being with whatever's happening for you. But being with whatever's happening in a way that is more settled. Taking a posture that's still, whether you're sitting on a chair, on the floor, or if you can't sit up due to illness, even lying down, just taking a posture that allows some stillness. It's a little easier in a sitting posture with the upright spine. And that stillness in itself, that posture of stillness, that bodily stillness, is the basis for this kind of meditation. Doesn't mean we can't meditate or be mindful when we're walking or moving or in activity. But for meditation where the body becomes still, it aids the mind to become settled and to deepen into its natural presence. So this natural presence, it's something that is not alien to any of us. We all have this natural presence. We can call it mindfulness, we can call it awareness, we can call it consciousness, many different words in different spiritual traditions that may point to this. It's a natural presence and the natural knowing nature of the mind. We want to learn to be present, be here with just what is, just what's arising for us. But our attitude is going to be one of allowing. Often our mind has been conditioned to follow the different thoughts, the different perceptions that arise in the mind. We follow. And so the still posture gives us the opportunity to not actually physically move with the movements of the mind, which we might otherwise do. But to sit with and recognize what arises in awareness. Physical sensations, thoughts, memories, projections about the future, various hopes and fears, different emotions may arise. The space of meditation is in order to observe how this happens. Not necessarily to analyze why it's happening, but to be with the way it is as it unfolds. And to cultivate this attitude of, there's different words we can use, observing, witnessing, being present with, direct knowing, which is settled in the heart and not necessarily conceptual grasping. This is the framework, this is the idea. So we're not trying to force anything. We use the natural breath or the sensations of the body just to help us stay grounded, to be present, to let go of the thoughts that our attention wants to run with and give energy to. Letting go means not pushing away, merely recognizing, this is a thought, this is a memory, it's just that. And recognizing that the thoughts, the memories, the sensations, they appear for a moment in awareness, and if left to themselves, they disappear. They're really quite fleeting. When particular mind states or moods appear to be hanging around, we need to look more closely at what's going on And we see that these mind states, moods, are actually made up of a lot of different fluctuating thoughts, perceptions, and particularly a push-pull in the mind of either wanting or not wanting. There's a certain proliferation that can happen that gives energy to things if they're hanging around. Now, this is what is the work of meditation often, just to see more clearly the way things are, but not to try to force it, but to naturally rest in present moment awareness with the anchoring of the breath or the body and keeping an open mind, allowing yourself to breathe naturally, allowing the body to breathe naturally, because that's what it does. It's a natural function. So with that little introduction, I'll guide us into the meditation. So making yourself comfortable in whatever posture that feels suitable to you. The uprightness is helpful for wakefulness. And finding a position with your spine supported, with the cushion underneath you, your arms and hands supported, either on your knees or your lap or on a blanket folded in your lap. So as there's no strain on the shoulders or the spine, and that the whole front, the belly, the chest is open and relaxed. Initially, you can just lower your gaze without closing your eyes in the beginning. And just become more aware of the body and the room, the space of the room that you're in. The body, an object, another object in the room, like whatever furnishings may be in the room, inhabiting a certain space. And being aware of the body. For some people, this isn't necessarily something they tune into immediately, particularly strong thinkers and doers. Awareness of the body is just feeling the weight of the body, the shape of the posture, tuning in with the felt sense of the sensations within the body. And as you do that, you become aware of the movement of the breath as one particular stream of sensations within this experience of body. So we can still hear whatever sounds there may be around you. The sound of my voice. And if your eyes are still open, there's still awareness of the visual field. And awareness of different thoughts or perceptions appearing, coming and going. But with the intention to be aware of the body, we're allowing that to come more to the fore in our conscious awareness. And finding a way within yourself where you can relax with the body just as it is. What does that mean for you? To allow yourself to relax with the body just as it is, just as it's felt in this moment. Often just bringing attention to this experience of the body, allowing ourselves to relax. We recognize that there's been some habitual holding, held tension. And just with the suggestion to relax, the muscles open, the breath moves more deeply. To spend a couple of minutes in this manner, sensing any tension held in the body, in the limbs, and allowing a relaxation. And connecting with the movement of the in and out breath as you do so. And if you feel more comfortable to do so, allowing the eyes to close. But staying connected with the sensations of the body and the natural breath. So this aspect of meditation we call shamatha, or calm, calming the mind, letting it settle, letting the body and the mind both settle, relax, and open. In this space we recognize any held tension both in the body and the mind, without judgment, without trying to get rid of it, just recognizing it when it's there and allowing it to relax or open out. So this is where we need to stay connected with what we call the object of meditation. In this case, where we're using the sensations of the breath and the body itself to stay connected, to stay present. We can call this mindfulness of breathing or mindfulness of body. So we're just learning to be with particular sensations in the present, to be aware. There's still other sense impressions, sounds, thoughts. The more and more we recognize their momentary impressions in the mind of awareness, and we notice if we start following, if attention starts traveling with thought processes, we can recognize when our energy is channeled into mental construction. It happens all the time. So just recognize that and simply remember the breath. And immediately we're back in contact with the breath sensation, the sensations of sitting, if that's easier for you to connect with. Sometimes it can feel a little hard to relax out of the thinking processes. But just notice that you don't have to force anything. Just recognize the energies with thinking. And merely as often as possible, just connecting with the breath or the body. And reminding yourself it's okay to relax here and now. Nothing else to do right now. Nowhere to go. It's okay just to be with the breath. To relax more and more into presence. Wakeful presence. Wakeful, relaxed presence. You don't need to try to hold the breath, fixate on it in any way. Let it flow naturally. Breath sensations are like an anchor for us. Well, actually an anchor for the thinking mind. To help the thinking mind settle. But once you experience a little bit of settledness, you recognize that this is more the natural state. Relaxed, open presence. So you don't have to force it. It's just that attention is somewhat addicted to running with thought. And now we're learning how to rest out of that for our own well-being. It doesn't mean that thoughts won't appear, but we gradually learn not to run with them in the meditation. And then they start to settle out as well. And don't struggle with anything that's occurring. Just recognize when tension begins to enter the mind or the body experience. We learn to recognize that and simply relax out of it. It's just habitual tendencies of mind and body. Our attitude or intention should be imbued with a kind of kindness and openness, non-force, not pushing, not efforting, not trying to make something happen or to get rid of something that's present. Just a kind, open awareness which naturally knows what appears. And a quality of trust that allows a letting go, relaxing, being with just the way things are. So this practice also takes a quality of patience. Because our conditioned mind, particularly the movement of attention, and kind of jumps around like a monkey. This mind is used to seeking objects, experience, chasing the pleasant, running from the unpleasant. It's being conditioned to run after thoughts, perceptions, being conditioned to think a lot about things. This is just the way it is with our conditioned mind. But we don't need to be despairing about that. We don't need to train it so much like we train a dog. Keep pulling it back with a leash around its collar. Although it can feel like that at times. But if we learn to trust in awareness itself, which is ever present, just the seeing of this pool of attention is enough. Just seeing it when it's present. Nothing to do with it. Let it dissolve by itself in the seeing. If it's seen in present time, it does dissolve. But there can be a bit of a momentum. So it reappears. So keep trusting in the very knowing nature of the mind, awareness itself. It just knows this attention bumping around. It learns not to judge it or try to change it or get rid of it, but to rest in the seeing of it. More and more as we recognize the habitual doing tendency within the mind, that is the movement of the attention that seeks for something else, either runs back to the past or runs into the future. This doing tendency just needs to be seen. And when it comes down to it, the essence of meditation is to just rest in this natural knowing nature of the mind, to recognize it and rest there, releasing this slightly or sometimes obvious drivenness to get something else, to go somewhere else, to become something else. The movement away from now, the movement away from here, is actually a movement away from awareness itself, from presence. The more that is released, the more clearly we can recognize the natural knowing, the Buddha awakened mind within. And this you verify in your own experience. The view, the path of practice, and the realization or the fruition is all found right here, nowhere else. Never apart from where you are. So as we bring this meditation to a close, just notice that we're not going to stop something and start something else, even though we talk of finishing the meditation and opening the chat for questions. Closing the eyes and opening the eyes. It doesn't have to be a massive transition. The natural knowing nature of the mind is ever present, with eyes open or closed, in stillness and activity, even in thinking and non-thinking. So just allow your connection with that to continue as we open up the chat for some questions and Dharma discussion. So there's usually a little bit of a delay for people to get their questions in and have them appear in the chat. So Ben's asking, would you mind talking more about effort? I ruminate and problem solve. When I apply effort or dismiss thought and move back to the breath, I often find stillness, but it feels like repression or unaccepting. Without effort, it feels like mind is wandering, distraction. Is there a balance here? Yes, absolutely, there is a balance to be found. And in a way...
Just mentioned we're getting quite a bit of static with the microphone. Just try making sure you're plugging it. It's plugged in or move it away from yourself.
Sorry, this is Jaya. Sarah's just popped in to say that there's a lot of static with the mic, so...
I'll text it in the other room. I don't know, check the jack, make sure the jack's in.
Yeah, okay. So it may just be my computer because it runs on motor when it gets warm.
Never had that problem before, though.
Oh, okay. Should I just plug in and see if that helps? Sorry about this.
It's more the microphone. When you start speaking, you're getting this...
Everything seems to be okay, as usual.
It's plugged in?
Yeah, everything's good. So sorry about that. Jaya Sarah will just test the sound. Usually she's in her tiny home listening in and just making sure things are going okay. So about effort and finding that balance. When I mentioned in the beginning reflection before the meditation guidance that much of the path or the way things unfold over the course of a practice over time is a refinement of view. And one could also say it's a refinement of effort as we start to really understand habitual movement of mind and how to relax out of that. At first, and it can be for a long time, it feels like we have to make effort. It's like, okay, we recognize that attention is traveling with thinking. I have to stop that, wake up quite strongly and come back to the breath. Now it feels like thinking is going there and the breath is here. So like a dog running wild on a leash, you have to kind of pull it back. That's what it can feel like. But you can practice with it. I mean, especially if the, there's a lot of energy in thinking, so it really feels a bit driven. You can practice because there's a subtle sense of aversion with that feeling of you're sitting still and you've got that feeling of this momentum running forward in the mental sphere. And your intention is to rest in the present. So it feels like I've got to do something to stop this, that this is not what should be happening. Therefore, I've got to pull attention back. But just explore with yourself, because actually thoughts aren't happening anywhere but here and now. And even though it feels like attention is traveling with thoughts, like a powerful trajectory into the future, it's actually an energy, an experience of an energetic here and now. It's not actually traveling anywhere, although we use these words. And when we say come back to the breath, it's not actually that we have to pull it out of some other space into this space. It's all actually happening in just this one space. So expanding the mind, expanding awareness, just to see this energetic of, let's say, fixated attention. It's just like this. You can say to yourself, it's just like this. This is what it feels like. But as soon as you wake up to it, you can just say to yourself, where is the breath? Within that feeling of running with thought. You wake up, you say, thinking. Where's the breath? So these are just skillful thoughts that we bring in to allow the mental fixation to relax. The mental fixation on a thought, whether it's futurizing or running back to the past, it relaxes. And the breath, which is ever present, but we lose awareness of it, the reminding of that, just relaxing out, just relaxing out. So this is where the instruction about not making a problem of thinking is important, because we do, particularly in the beginning and the middle part of the practice, it's like this subtle intention that we don't want to think, we want to relax out of it. Right? But then there's this preferencing. I want this, I don't want that. So that we've really, the refinement is seeing that. This preferencing, the wanting and not wanting is a push-pull. I don't want that dog running on the leash, pulling it back, So, actually, what is this feeling of running into the future? It's just an energetic moment. When we wake up to that, one's already present. If we don't wake up to that, we're within this dreamlike movement. It is very dreamlike. So this is compared with the feeling, with the experience of samsara. It's dreamlike and it feels like movement because there's not yet full awareness. When there's recognition, thinking, something wakes up out of that. It's immediate. So this is just where we practice. I think that was Ben who asked the question. This is the territory of practice. It's refining the view, refining the effort, because the mind is so conditioned to make effort, particularly in our Western society, our education system, our family conditioning, our societal conditioning. It's all about, doing something, productivity, learning and engaging the mind. And, there's a lot of that momentum. Now, I'm not saying that that is wrong, but it creates very much a sense of got to keep moving. So this practice of meditation is giving ourselves a break from that, learning what it is to relax out of that, not by forcing, but purely by recognizing and seeing there is that, and yet there is that which knows. And that which knows is actually ever still. The essence of that which knows, awareness itself, is unconditioned, unmoving. We haven't fully realized that or seen that, but this process of meditation and learning how to awaken in presence, awaken in awareness, starts to give us the taste of that. So I hope that helps, Ben. Even for myself, in the first stages of meditation, say after a busy day or doing things, there is that momentum. We all have that conditioned momentum. And how long it takes to just settle out of that just depends on the skill that we learn. And sometimes a lot of the practice is just recognizing, there is this momentum. Learning to relax the disapproving or the not wanting. Just, it is as it is. The more you relax that, that's really where the clinging is, the wanting and the not wanting, the push-pull. And it can be quite subtle. So the more you relax out of that, without too much effort, just recognition, there is that, and there is the breath, and there is the knowing. Things can relax very quickly and sometimes quite suddenly. But if you have an expectation of that, it may not happen, because there's still a subtle hope, a wanting, not wanting. So this is the refinement that happens. The more you see the nature of the movement in the mind, often what's underpinning it is the wanting, the not wanting, the clinging. But it is not allayed through not wanting it to be so. We learn all about the nature of the mind by engaging with this practice. So, is everything happening exactly as it should, such as a cosmic event? If something has happened in my life, is that all it is, just a happening? Yeah, I think so. Every experience is an experience. That's all we can say of it. Now, there's plenty of experiences that we really like and would generally like to repeat because of that, the pleasantness that it may have brought. And there's plenty of experiences that we don't like and wish never happened or wish happened differently. We wish we could erase from our memories or our lives. And that's not going to happen either. It's just an experience. The more invested we are in something, in an experience, wanting to keep it or wanting to get rid of it, wishing it were here, wishing it wasn't here, that keeps that movement and the dukkha, actually, the pain, the suffering, it keeps fueling that. So in this Buddhist approach to meditation and contemplation and the path, we learn to see experiences as just that. Life is full of experiences through the senses, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. This is where the Buddha acknowledged where the world we experience is actually arising through these 6 sense doors. And our mind, our sense of ego or sense of me, that tends to like to own things and construct stories about who I am and how others see me and how I want to be seen or not seen. These kind of mental construction can create a lot of suffering for ourselves because inevitably there are pleasant and painful experiences. Things we like, things we don't like. And if we're identified with them as being who I really am, then this is the recipe for a lot of suffering. So again, this is the content of awareness that we're working with within meditation or within our everyday life. When we learn, really, when the Buddha first started to teach about what it is he awakened to and how it was that he awakened to the complete ending of suffering, he talked about these 4 truths. knowing dukkha, knowing suffering, knowing unsatisfactoriness just for what it is, but also how it arises. Knowing how it appears in the mind, how it is sustained in the mind, but also how it is allayed. Now, within that how, it's not so much that we have to stop it happening in terms of, I've got to stop this. It's in the seeing, it's in the understanding. And right at the core of that understanding, of the clear knowing and the clear seeing about the nature of reality, is seeing that all experiences through the senses and through the mind are temporary, impermanent, transient phenomena, transient impressions. They appear but for a time, like the bubble that appears in a puddle with a droplet of rain, a drop of rain. This bubble appears for a moment on the surface of the puddle and disappears. He said experience is like that. So if you're identified, fully identified with experience as being the sole content of who and what I am, then that's a very painful situation. Not only is it changing all the time, we don't want it to, and we try to stabilize things in the phenomenal world where it's impossible for them to stabilize. So the waking up is waking up to the natural nature of the mind that is already stable. In Mahayana Buddhism, they point to the Dharmakaya. In the early suttas, the Buddha points to the deathless reality, the unborn, uncreated, unconditioned, unformed. Here, now, possible to realize, here and now in one's own experience. This is the nature of the Buddha mind. This is the nature of the highest truth, the Dharma of the deathless reality or the unchanging reality, unborn, unmanifest, Dharmakaya. The very essence, awareness itself. It's not a personal consciousness that arises and ceases, and yet there is the knowing nature, aware nature, simultaneously not an object to be known or seen, but felt, experienced. Very hard to put words on it, because experience, the word experience actually means something that stands out, that appears. It is phenomenal. We can describe it in relation to other experiences or things. Now, once we know the nature of experience and phenomena, or the conditioned reality and the unconditioned reality, there can be this happy marriage. Without knowing the nature of the conditioned and the unconditioned within our own heart minds, then we call this ignorance, which is the root cause of suffering. So the practice is all about becoming familiar with the conditioned and the unconditioned through direct experience, direct knowing. So I appreciate the technique you included as we moved into the chat, being open. The way you mentioned we can be aware and use present awareness while doing more active things. Yeah, so in the Dzogchen teaching, this is where we talk about, or the masters talk about, everything becomes a path. We bring every experience onto the path, and to that seamless transition between meditation and non-meditation or post-meditation, it can increasingly become a seamless transition. So as we're not dependent on stillness and silence, and we're not averse to activity and movement, But we can start to recognize the knowing nature of the mind as ever present in stillness and in movement. And Ajahn Chah had this lovely, it's a kind of a koan. Many of you know Ajahn Chah, of Ajahn Chah, who's kind of the spiritual grandfather in my tradition, in my lineage. He passed away in the early 90s, 1990s. You know, he had this phrase, he said, have you ever seen still water? Have you ever seen flowing water? Well, when the mind is peaceful, it is just like still flowing water. So this points to something quite profound. And it resembles a Zen saying or a Zen koan because it doesn't seem sensical to the rational mind. But it's also pointing to a maturity of practice or of realization where there is not this preferencing of stillness as opposed to movement, but actually a recognition of the natural peace of the mind, which is ever present, whether in stillness or movement. This is the unconditioned Dharma. So I hope that translates to most of you in the way that I've mentioned it. So, okay, there's a little bit of, Alex was giving some tips on the sound. Many teachings in this little meditation for me. Thank you, Jitindriya. No need to try to train your mind like a dog on a leash. Good. Yeah, that feels like that sometimes, doesn't it? Sometimes you realize you don't have to pull it back from anywhere, just wake up. That's the essence of the training, is just wake up. Just, it's like this. And trust in that awareness. This is the essence of Ajahn Sumedho's teaching and Ajahn Chah's trust in that awareness. And we gradually gain skill in that. That's why it's sometimes called a gradual path, but the waking up is instantaneous, yet gradual. Very hard to describe. What is the Buddhist perspective, or does the Dharma have to say about accessing creativity and its expression? So depends on the tradition, I guess. It doesn't really, from my understanding, the Dharma doesn't say a lot about accessing creativity and its expression per se. But in some traditions, you find that actually, or let's say in the Dzogchen tradition, this term expression comes in recognizing the movement of the mind as a natural expression of the source mind, if you like, or the Dharmakaya. When it's realized that there's these two, the movement and the stillness, are not a duality, which is what Ajahn Chah was kind of pointing towards in that saying that I just quoted, that the expression can be as awake and enlightened and spontaneous and natural as the source knowing. Now this is quite a leap to take. I'll just pop that in for now. There's nothing wrong with creativity and its expression. I'm myself trained as an artist In my early years, I had a natural flair with art, and the process of art was actually a very helpful process, because depending on your particular process of art, but for me it was a lot of observing that which was going to be drawn or painted, or observing and waiting for the intuitive movement to make a mark on the canvas would arise. So in that observing both the external object, but also observing the mind in its rising movement to make a mark, this is the space of meditation. You start to see the nature of the mind in movement and in stillness, and the nature of objective reality, because nothing, once you start observing in the visual field, nothing is really the same. It's our labeling of objects that give the impression of a concrete, stable reality of a tree or a house or whatever. But as you observe that, you notice the changing nature of it. In the visual field, the light is changing all the time, and the light defines the form. And you see the mental labeling of tree or dog, or house or forest, whatever, is quite different to the actual experience. And trying to get down to the actual essence of the thing that you wish to paint or that which you're observing. In the process of stripping away labels or letting labels fall away, mental labels, you come into a space of direct experience. This is the territory of meditation. So the process of creativity and expression can be one that brings insight, but it depends a lot on the activity, the purpose of the activity, and the intent in your own mind with regards to the purpose of the activity. I guess I was always interested in, what is the truth here? What's reality? My desire to understand truth, I guess, framed my whole artistic inquiry. So the other way we can look at creativity and expression is a mind gone wild sometimes. You can look at the ever-creating thinking mind. The thinking mind is ever creating and recreating scenarios mentally, and sometimes our attention and gets sucked into that, and now we believe it. The mind believes it is a reality and suffers accordingly, until we wake up to that construction, to that the nature of the mind as quite creative and its expressions. It's like if we thoroughly believe that's the reality, we can be caught in it. If we recognize it just for what it is, it can be a useful display, but there's no compulsion to follow or engage if it's not appropriate or not particularly useful. So there's a few reflections there. Curious if you could say more about a settled heart, which you mentioned earlier. There's much in Buddhism about the mind. What is your understanding of the heart in relation to the mind? So in the Buddha Dharma, mind and heart, we can, is often the English translation for the one word, citta. And citta is also, can be translated as awareness or basic awareness. So the English word, in our tradition, we often use the word heart or heart-mind to point to something, say, distinct from the mental movement, which in the Pali is mano, or mano vijnana, which is more the movement of the intellect. This is where the thinking, discursive thinking, happens. So it's not as if they're completely separate, but as you know, the thinking, discursive thinking, can be very. We describe it as mental. A lot of neurons firing in the brain, so it feels more head-based. But the awareness that knows, it doesn't know through thoughts. It's not a head base. It's much more, you could say it's global, but a lot of masters point to the heart and the feeling sense of it. It's more heart-based, the natural knowing, expansive awareness. So these words, heart, mind, can be interchangeable for this more global, expanded awareness. But mind, as in mental movement, is a different, slightly different referencing. Not separate, but a different level of activity. So I hope that helps. It's difficult because the English words used to translate the different words in Pali or Sanskrit or Tibetan for mind can be quite various. So Frank just mentions that, just lost that, Buddha wrapped all teachings into 4 words. All perception is vanity. Yeah, there were many ways that he talked about reality, and very brief summaries, and that is one of them. Yeah. What does it mean? All perception is vanity. Well, perception is a translation for sanya, which means label or memory, conditioned learning, conditioned label. Vanity is another way of saying it's bound up with a sense of ego or self, which is also a construction, mental construction, and all about me or mine. So someone says, Nisargadatta smoked a lot, so if one finds peace, is dropping habits of the body necessary? Well, it's not necessarily something that's forethought about. A lot of habits are dropped, but mostly a lot of mental habits that lead or that are the cause of mental dukkha, mental suffering. When ignorance is undermined, there may still be certain tendencies in the mind or the body that are not identified with, no longer the cause of suffering, or they're known until they fade out. For in the Nisargadatta, he had a little beady shop in his little local town. Beedies, tobacco, very thin rolled tobacco. Most people, a lot of people would smoke in India. So I guess, it's a long-term habit of body. I don't know the details of whether he continued it well towards his death or after awakening. I presume that he may have. There's also people who ask about the Thai masters who, within their society, they chew betel nut, and some continue to do so. And I can't really speak from direct knowing, but certainly certain habits of the body will drop away. Some things continue. But the dukkha, the cause of suffering, which is mental, which is ignorance and delusion, is completely uprooted. So I'm just moving through some of the comments. Thank you. And then to the question. So then, to deal with all events that cross my path, I must meet them with neither desire or aversion. Is it just what the universe wants to do right now? No. Well, that's the ideal, to meet them with neither desire or aversion. However, what we find is that these mental habits are within our mind stream. So we begin to observe when we're meeting things with desire or aversion, because that's just the way it is. And so we work with that. As to the last part, is it just what the universe wants to do right now? We would say more, it's just what's happening right now, rather than give the universe a sense of agency as to what it wants or doesn't want. It's just what is, it's just what's appearing right now. And we have the potential, the possibility to awaken to that, to recognize just what's going on and awaken out of the illusion of samsara or cyclic suffering, to recognize true nature of the mind, or the Buddha mind. This presence you discuss is present in nature. Well, it's present in the mind, as in the global mind. It's everywhere. At this level, this presence, it can feel quite personal initially in the practice, and at some point, you can experience it or know it as completely global, boundless, non-separative, a unity or a non-dual reality. So we can say it's present in nature, we can say it is nature, we can say it is presence. Our recognition of it, or our comprehension of it, is the path from partial to full, partial recognition to full recognition. Is it correct to affirm that conscious sleeping is synonymous with Turiya? So that is, Turiya is an Advaita term which I believe Ramana talks about in two different ways. I think sometimes he talks about it as synonymous with what you call conscious sleeping. I think at times he may also talk about it as a full awakened state, but that's just from memory, and I'm not really as fully acquainted with this term as I should be to answer this, so I'll leave it there. What exactly is the Buddha's middle way and its practical application in daily life? Well, that's very hard to sum up in a short answer. First of all, I'd recommend, if you're interested in this, I've given a 6-part series on YouTube called, I think simply called the Buddha Dharma, which speaks particularly to this territory and the key paradigms of the Buddhist teaching and application. So that's, the links to that are on our website or on this YouTube channel under the live tab. 6-part series. So I'd recommend you watch that to get a fuller explanation. The Buddha's middle way is the 4th noble truth, called the 8-fold noble path. Right view, right intention, right speech, action, livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right samadhi. So all of these factors of body-mind come together and, you can say, form a path to full realization in the end of suffering. They're not separate factors. They can be present. We can look at it as developing a life that supports awakening on the level of conduct, view, and meditation. And these things are also an internal awakening process, not necessarily just about externals, but to use the term again, it's a marriage of both. So to get into the details of that, you need to just listen to those teachings that I mentioned. Just trying to come back, a lot of questions have come in. So, application in daily life. A summary, Sila Samadhi Panya, or right view, the Panya, the wisdom of the mind, the wholesome living, wholesome conduct based on harmlessness, the intention of harmlessness, and cultivating this meditation of presence and recognizing what's happening in the mind, becoming familiar with conditioned and the unconditioned. This forms the path. Should a person who met God in higher dimensions of existence devote their life to religion and become a monk? Well, that very much depends on the individual and the karmic propensity, whatever's unfolding in one's life. It's not for anyone to say you should do this or should not do this. It's what appears the appropriate and thing for yourself to do. There are many masters who awakened without becoming a monk or a monastic or a nun. Such a lifestyle, however, can hone the attention and the intention to cultivating in a way that supports realization. But this, in this day and age, this can also be done with a simple lifestyle that is not necessarily that of a monk or a nun. It all depends on that person's situation. But it's good also to be guided or have reference to a teacher within your tradition to help guide you. Not necessarily they won't tell you to ordain or not, but just to guide you in your practice where you come up against some doubts or concerns or questions. Could you maybe talk about the connection between the heart and our perception of love? Well, as I was referring to that previous question about the heart-mind and the sense that when we recognize this level of awareness and start to touch into it as an expansive state, its expression, someone was asking about expression earlier, its expression is felt as love, or its nature is felt as love. So love can be a loaded word in our language and culture. So what is this experience of love at the level of the heart when we come into a place of expandedness? It's a sense of non-division. We come out of a sense of a fractious or fretting separate self into an expansive connectedness. And that in itself, that connectedness, that expansiveness, the language of this level of heart mind is loving. There's We call it loving because there's no aversion there. And there's a feeling of relaxing, which is pleasant, openness with a sense of trust. So this we can refer to as, say, a perception of non-duality. This expression is love. The non-separateness of being, the very nature of being in its boundless form. That's just what it feels like. So I'm just scrolling through some comments here to thank you for your comments. I won't read them out as I'll just come to the questions. So sorry, this keeps shifting the chat. So do you find any particular breathing technique helpful in settling the mind at the start of meditation, or just go with the body's natural flow of breath? I tend to go with the body's natural flow of breath, but I think for many people, and sometimes I do this myself, because we've been involved in often in a lot of activity and a lot of mental activity, when you sit down, you could first do, say, 3 full conscious in-breaths and out-breaths. So fully in breath, breathing deep, and out, following to the very last, the out-breath. To do this 3 times can really help establish awareness in the body a bit more quickly. And then at the end of the 3rd out-breath, just release any control of the breath and just stay with the natural breath. Now, another way to do this coming into meditation is what I often describe is a gradual entry into body awareness. So just keeping eyes open at first, feeling the body in the space of the room, bringing your attention more to felt sensations. And then with that felt sensations of the breath and of the body and awareness, you start to feel the breath naturally. So this is a gradual movement into mindfulness of body. So this 3 conscious full in-breaths and out-breaths is another way to expedite the mindfulness of body. Sometimes also you can do some mindful body work like yoga or qigong or tai chi, or even standing meditation or walking meditation for however long before the sitting meditation. And you'll find that that body work will have helped awareness settle into mindfulness of body. So when it comes to sitting, there's already some more settledness. So thank you for bringing that up. I think people will find that helpful. Either the 3 deep in-breaths, out-breaths, or gradual recognition of body or the mindful body work. But then it is important to, in this meditation, just to relax then with the natural breath. So we're not forcing anything. The breath will sometimes be short and shallow and light, and other times go more deeply. So just to observe how it is in that flow. So Jayasara's put up the link to the Buddha Dharma series below, at the bottom of the chat, for particularly that questioner who asked about the Buddha's middle way. but also for others, if you haven't heard of it before or found it before. It's kind of enlarged sessions like this. I give a guided meditation, often a long talk from 40 to 50, 60 minutes, and then open for Q&A. So the whole sessions are 2+ hours, and there's 6 of them. We move gradually through these paradigms of the Buddha, starting with the nutshell of the Four Noble Truths and looking at how practice can develop. So we've come to the end of the questions, it seems, for this period. So we might call it a day for this session. I think Jaya has still got the chat box off, but maybe she could open it up for a few moments to let people touch base and say goodbye. In 3 weeks' time, Jayasara will be here doing the same thing, a guided meditation, Q&A. So I hope you can all join her then. And just also some encouragement before we sign off with regards to the way things seem to be developing in the world, particularly for those in the US and also in Europe, but all around the world. There's stress and change. Change is happening on the level of institutions and larger scale of things quite rapidly. So this practice that we've been talking about is not a denial or a trying to get away from any of that in any way, shape or form. But it's a working with that, because all of that is part of the conditioned reality, the world that we live in. We still experience it through this body-mind. It's experienced nowhere other than through these eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind that pulls it all together and constructs meaning. So as I guess someone highlighted before when I was talking about a happy marriage between the conditioned and the unconditioned, we can look at our life, perhaps within this framework, how to flow with the conditioned reality without losing touch with the unconditioned reality. The conditioned is in an ever process of change. Sometimes we can influence things for the better. Much of the time we can't, at least on the larger scale. But in our everyday life, in our everyday interactions with others, with the world around us, with ourselves, this is where the path develops. This is where we can influence moment by moment. And this has a powerful effect, whether you recognize it or not, whether you're aware of it or not, on the world at large. So this is the territory of trusting in that process. So just that one last question of Cedric, which just came in. What advice would you give to an 18-year-old seeker who's had a taste of oneness and the nature of I am, the Advaita approach, but now fallen back into ego and fear? I believe I'm in the night of the soul. I would say trust in awareness itself. You haven't actually fallen back. There's an experience of fear. There was an experience of oneness. Now you've tasted, you've known a deeper reality. Karmic stuff will appear. The practice is to bring kindness, compassion to that. And remember, awareness itself is ever present. This dark night of the soul is classic territory for anyone walking the path, and profound growth can come out of this experience. So recognize the fear and the constricted ego are moments, momentary phenomena. Let the bubbles burst, relax again into that open, boundless awareness felt here, and its expression is love. Just to reiterate the things we've talked about. Okay, and keep listening to the Dharma. That keeps setting our view in the right way, releasing the mind from suffering. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Astrid and Rosie. Lovely to know that you're there. Nice to not see you, but to know you're there. Lovely. And Jaya will with you all. Jaya Sarah will be with you all in a few weeks' time. In the meantime, keep the faith, trust the heart, trust awareness, listen to the Dharma, and pray or generate the intention, may all beings be free of suffering. May all beings be free of fear. May all beings be free of oppression. May all beings realize their full potential. Blessings, everyone. See you again soon. Bye for now.